Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. I am so glad that you are here. My name is Jaimie Zaki, and I am a lactation consultant, a mother of 5. I have spent some time as a doula, I was a nurse, and I am here to help you learn how to prevent and overcome breastfeeding challenges so that you can enjoy breastfeeding without all the stress and the overwhelm and the frustration and the anxiety. This is going to be the experience that you have been dreaming of, and I'm going to help you feel confident. Now, I wanted to just welcome you to the podcast and take a little time to introduce myself and share my story with you and let you know what you can expect from each and every episode that comes after this one. So I have 5 kiddos, and my first is he'll be 10 years old. I cannot believe he's almost 10. But we had a really, really rough start to breastfeeding. I wanted to share my story with you so you can understand why it is so important to me that I help you cultivate a positive breastfeeding experience. I was 21 when I got pregnant and 22 when I gave birth, and I was so excited and I was so ready for this, and I knew I wanted to take a very natural approach. I wanted, no epidural for his birth. I wanted an unmedicated birth in the hospital, and I knew I wanted to breastfeed. It's very important to me to feel like I am embracing God's design for motherhood in every way, including giving birth and breastfeeding, because that's what he designed us for, right? And so I believed that I could do that. I believed breast is best because that's what I was taught in nursing school. What nobody taught me was how hard all of that could be, and how sometimes it takes a little more than just believing that those things are good. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of work. There's some things you have to learn. There's things you have to unlearn. We have a very broken system, and I did not know that at the time. I did not see that when I was pregnant and giving birth. And now that I have seen it, I have helped so many people work through that system so that they can shut out the toxic whispers of our world and embrace their God-given intuition. And that's what I want to do for you. When I was pregnant with my son, I read blogs and stuff to prepare for breastfeeding, but I didn't really do a lot more than that. I didn't take any classes. I did not go to any Latching meetings before my baby was born. I didn't really do a whole lot other than just read a couple blogs. And I read one book, and it was a great book, but it didn't completely prepare me for what I needed to be prepared for. So I believed, I was a nurse, I knew breast was best, I would be able to figure out breastfeeding. And if I didn't know what to do, if I had a challenge that was just too much for me, I firmly believed that my doctor and his lactation consultant, the nurses at the hospital, the lactation consultant at the doctor's office was the same one as the hospital. But I believe that between the two of them, they'd take care of me. That I didn't need to really be that prepared. It was going to work itself out. It was going to be fine. And if it was harder than I expected, then they were there to fix it. And that wasn't the reality. The truth is that when we were dealing with feeding issues for weeks and weeks and weeks, they didn't help me. They just kind of gaslit me. And I remember one day the lactation consultant was like, well, it's kind of like an old car when you take it to the shop. It's making a weird sound for you at home, but then you take it in and everything's fine. And I was like, wow, thanks. You just compared me to a car and basically made me feel like I'm crazy. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I kept pushing the issue that I was in excruciating pain every time my son would feed. And she kind of said, well, his latch looks fine to me. I think you are just sensitive because you are a redhead, and there's nothing else I can do for you. It was really upsetting because at that point I knew something was wrong. But my doctor told me, I just kept pushing the issue, and I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Help me figure out what it is. And he just kept saying, like, you're a first-time mom, and you don't really know what to expect, and you don't really know what you're doing. So he basically made me feel like I should not trust my instincts because I'm a first-time mom. And then he said, you've given breastfeeding a really good shot. You should probably just stop. You don't need to keep trying. And that was really angering to me because, one, I was screaming for help breastfeeding. I wanted help breastfeeding. There was a problem, and nobody would tell me what the problem was. And I wanted to figure out what the problem was and solve the problem. I didn't want to formula feed. I didn't want to exclusively pump. And even if I wanted to, my baby was struggling so much to feed that even when he was feeding from the bottle, he would push the nipple like inside out. Inside out is probably not the best word for it, but like he would invert the nipple. So the bottle nipple would go back into the bottle, and he couldn't get it out because he was thrusting his tongue and pushed it in. So if that's what he was doing to the bottle, imagine what he was doing to me. And they were not hearing that. They were not hearing that. They couldn't understand it. I hit a really, 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 really dark place. And then eventually I was crying on the shower floor. And I remember it so clearly because my mom came in and was like, what is wrong? And it's just so embarrassing to admit, but I was trying to figure out how I could give him away to like one of those firehouse box things, but tell everybody he was kidnapped so that nobody would know I gave him away. And then like I realized that was not gonna, like, there was no way that was gonna fly. No one was gonna fall for it. And I didn't want to give my baby away. I just didn't want us to be struggling and suffering anymore. And I needed answers, and I couldn't get them. So I was looking for my exit strategy. Something had to give, and nothing was. And so my mom said, what do you think is the problem here? And I told her, I'm like, I believe he has a tongue tie. In fact, I know he has a tongue tie. I've researched this. I had a tongue tie. Mine was released when I was 4. I said, this is the problem and nobody will listen to me. And she was like, well, there has to be doctors who deal with this, right? And I was like, yes, just not here. I lived in a very small town in South Carolina. And my hometown was 8 hours away. And that's where all my friends who had babies and told me about their tongue tie experiences lived. And so my mom was like, so what did they say they did? Did they see somebody? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, who did they see? And I told her, and I was like, but he's like all the way back home. And she looked at me and she kind of snickered. Mind you, she was visiting me and she still lived there. She kind of snickered and she was like, pack the car and call them and tell them you're on your way. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. And she was like, why not? And it was in that moment that I realized I could do this. Like, I could just decide that my doctors don't know what they're talking about, and I can go find somebody who does. I don't need anybody's permission to do that. So I called them and I told them, I am 8 hours away and I'm coming into town. I'm only going to be there for a few days. Is there any possible way that you can squeeze me in? And they were like, actually, yes, we can tomorrow morning. And I was like, cool, I'll be there. And we drove what should have been an 8-hour drive, took about 12 hours between screaming baby and rain. And we went and found somebody who could help us. And it was in that experience that I learned about advocacy and standing up for yourself and pushing back against our broken system. And then I decided I wanted to do something for mothers. I wanted to help fix that system. I wanted to help fix that brokenness. And I was an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, and I had, during my pregnancy, been working on getting into an LPN to RN program, and I was accepted. And I found out I was accepted and was supposed to start the program when my son was 6 months old. Now, after everything we had been through, we had overcome our troubles and breastfeeding became easy. And when he was 6 months old, I was like, this was like the best thing ever now, right? Like we were doing it. And I was going to start this nursing program and I was so excited. I went to the orientation and I asked the nurse instructor, what are your pumping accommodations for lab days that are extra long or clinical days? And she laughed at me and was like, I can't help you with that. And it was in that moment I realized exactly why the system was so broken. Nursing school is preaching breast is best, yet they're not even supporting nursing students in breastfeeding. And I was like, I have worked too freaking hard for this goal. I'm not settling. I'm not giving up. I'm not quitting and switching because I can't pump for a nursing program that's going to tell you one thing is important and then not back it up. So I quit. I walked away. I didn't go to the program. And this was right before I was supposed to start, mind you. Like a week before I was supposed to start, I walked. And it was the best decision I ever made because I decided to become a doula and a lactation consultant. And now I work with moms directly, but I don't just work with moms. I work for moms. I always tell the moms I work with, I answer to you. I don't answer to a hospital corporation. I don't answer to a formula company. I don't answer to anybody but God and you. That's who I answer to. That's who I work for. I work for God and you. And that means that you're going to get the absolute best I can give you. I'm going to give you my best. And that's why I've decided to start this podcast, because there are so many of you out there who are so excited to embrace motherhood, yet you have no idea what you're in for. And you have no idea what to do when push comes to shove and your intuition is screaming at you. You know something's wrong, but you don't have the answers. I want to help you feel confident advocating for yourself. I want to help you feel confident making decisions. And I want to help you feel confident breastfeeding. Every mother deserves that. So in the next episodes, I'm going to teach you some of the myths that undermine breastfeeding, some of the mistakes that moms make, and I am going to teach you everything I can to help you have a positive breastfeeding relationship with your baby. And I want you to always remember that breastfeeding does not have to be perfect to be positive. I had a horrible start, but we overcame it. There are so many women that have a difficult start and overcome it, and I'm going to help you do that. You're going to be able to prevent and overcome breastfeeding challenges with a sense of confidence. I can't promise everything will be easy. I can't promise it'll be perfect, but I promise you, you can feel peace, you can feel positive, you can feel hope. I hope you subscribe to join me each week, and I cannot wait to share with you all of the resources that I have to help you have a confident and positive, beautiful breastfeeding experience.